Many of us grew up with video games, whether it was from time to time play or all night long gaming. We've all had this game that we cherish since our childhood. But did you know that the video game industry was actually very serious? It is worth more than the film and the music industry together, like a lot more. They require years of craft, of attention to detail, a grand vision, and heavy investments with the hope that one day they will be on the shelf of the stores. A lot of these games have shaped who we are, and this is no surprise. Just look at the world that they picked. The aesthetics, their plots, the controllers, the gameplay, they make us feel very special, they make us feel like a superhero, or they make us fear, or they trigger our curiosity. The first video games were even some sort of miracle. If you look at the development of the first Prince of Persia on Macintosh, the game designer Jordan didn't have enough RAM to develop the main enemy, so he had to go with an exclusive OR function to actually code the enemy in black, and he called him Shadow Man. Fast forward to today, these games get released every day. They're less of a miracle. But have you wondered how they get built? They require vision, financing, thoughtful planning, aligning teams of very skilled people, and harder than anything, sticking to hard deadlines. Video game studios sometimes consider themselves as pirates, but if they are, I can tell you one thing. They're extremely thoughtful and organized, because without a commercial success, there will be no more video games they can produce. There's just so much we can learn from the top world-class video game studios like Nintendo or Blizzard. And so without further wait, let's dive into the 5 main learnings that every product manager can get from the video game industry. Tips number 1, onboard people into your product. No one reads manual before playing video games. There also used to be these tutorials levels where you would have to go through and learn the main commands of the product, but we don't see them anymore. Why is that? Well, it's boring. Why video games should be entertaining? So how do video game studios train people to play? Well, very simply, they ask them to play. Video game studios were among the first one to understand that in order to learn something, people just had to do it. And so for that, they were creating some first stages that were quite simple that people could go through and learn the basics commands, but these levels were actually part of the actual game. They also used another strategy which consists in helping people understand the commands of the game while they were waiting for the game to start. This is the case for FIFA, for instance. Throughout the learning phase, the studio would use 2 tactics to communicate people how to play. The first one is visual cues. If you look at the first Super Mario Bros., it's a masterpiece of simplicity and visual cues. People would start on the main screen on the far left, and then they would naturally understand that they have to evolve toward the right. There's also some blocks with a question mark that really triggers your curiosity and you want to jump into it or touch it to understand what the hell will happen. When you do that, you have understood 90% of the game. If you hit an enemy, then you die. And then suddenly you understand that you're vulnerable and then you can take one hit before you die. So through visual cues, within a few seconds, you've understood all you needed to understand about the game. Okay, that's great, Enzo, but visual cues are great for a simple game like the first Super Mario. They can't really help you communicate complex things. Well, turned out they can. The latest Zelda game is an open world. When players can do anything with the game, it becomes incredibly challenging to navigate toward the goals. But Nintendo solved that in a very elegant way. They actually put on the way of the users some shiny object that would trigger their attention. Nintendo knew that there was a human bias that would actually push players to follow the roads. So what they did is they placed near to the roads some very shiny objects that would actually help people understand the main commands of the game. A great example are the shiny apples that are in the trees. They attract your attention, and when you get closer to them, you actually realize that your player can climb the trees, which is one of the main commands they added in this new game. The second tactics they use to help people understand is introduce scarcity. So scarcity in a video game can be bullets if you're playing a shooter game, it can be time if you're playing Tetris, it can be lives if you're playing Super Mario. And when you introduce that concept and people understand that they don't have an unlimited amount of them, they're gonna start to put some mental effort to understand how the game actually works. Okay, so how does it relate to product management? Well, to explain that, I'd like to go through a framework called the knowledge gap. The knowledge gap is a space between what your users currently know about your product and what they need to know to use it successfully. When building a product, you have to understand your users' knowledge gap so you can build a great learning experience and close that gap. By using well-timed visual cues on your product, guiding them through your product concept naturally, you're reducing the gap. And the same happens if you have some scarcity. Let's say you have a usage-based pricing, like you're limiting the number of actions that people can take within your free plan or the first tier of your paid plan. You may go with tooltips and all kind of pointers, but by default, most people won't take them. Instead, you can teach them to do the things they should do by just doing them, and they will love it. Notion, for instance, has this to-do list as part of the product. Linear, the ticketing management system, also asks you to open, close, and edit tickets by just going through the list that they gave you. So we've just seen how game studios help their players get started through visual cues and scarcity. But now let's ask ourselves, how do they make it enjoyable and thoughtful experience from the beginners to the expert players to go through their games? How do they make it easy to start but hard to finish? Tips number 2, easy to start, hard to finish. So the best games out there are the ones that can entitle the beginners and also the experts, that anyone can play. Not only they're big commercial successes, but they also appeal to everyone's personality. Whether you're the casual player that just want to play from time to time, or the hardcore player that really want to solve every single quest that the studio has crafted. But how do game studios design for that? They make it easy to start but hard to finish. Starting off with Super Mario is very easy, and reaching out levels one after another is fine too. Games let you save, and when you're done with your life, you can try another one. If you want to finish the game, you just follow the main track, play it a few times, and you're gonna get there. To make their games a bit richer, some studios create multiple starts of the game. This is the case of the famous 3 Pokemon you can pick from when you start. When you master their basic mode, game studios introduce ways so that you can push the limit. You can either replay the game but in the harder mode, or you may have some side quests, like in GTA, or in Zelda with the hard pieces, or in Pokemon if you want to capture the 1015 Pokemon. Some people even push the limit further beyond what developers actually ever thought about, like speedrunners. These people actually run old games and try to complete them as fast as possible. Some games were actually conceived by default to be impossible to finish. This is the case of Minecraft, where you can build any kind of world, any kind of combinations, and the limits are endless. Or even when AI is in the cockpit. This is the case with The Sims. You can play that game many times and you won't have twice the same experience because of how sophisticated is the AI. In product management, this is referred as building a low-floor, high-selling product. The products we love the most, like Notion, break through the trade-off of simplicity and complexity, and they build what is called a low-floor, high-selling product. These products are easy to start with, and only when needed, you can increase the complexity level. The floor tells us how easy it is to get started with the task. Low floor means simple starting point. Everyone can get on board. A low floor is inviting. It could be finding a song on Shazam or searching something on Google. Notion getting started page is another great example. Notion teaches the users the actions they'll need to access their product core value with a functional checklist that includes simple instructions like type, / commands. Each of these actions actually teach you in the context of Notion how you're going to use it. The products I mentioned are world-class in providing users a low floor, but they're also great examples of offering high ceilings. Great products don't stop with the low floor. They're powerful. They have the high ceilings. On Shazam, you can also find the artist venues. On Google, you can find some piece of clothes just from a picture that you upload. Not powerful, in this case, Google doesn't get onto the user's way. It's offering a suggestions. Only if the user is long pressing the screen will they get. Let's go back to Notion. They have 7 ways to edit a list view and a database. But if you don't pay attention to them, your eyes are naturally looking at the table itself, not the filters. Again, this is an elegant way to enable flexibility without getting into the way. Great games are easy to start, but hard to finish. We can play them again and again. And the same goes with digital products. We can start within a couple of minutes, but then they're very sophisticated. We can do so much more with them when we adopt them over the long time. But this being said, there is complexity and complexity. Tips number 3, reducing the complexity. So we've seen the importance of onboarding the players into your game and really helping them have an easy start but a hard to finish principle. But what we haven't discussed is one sort of complexity, the useless complexity. Players like to achieve hard things. It gives them some sense of fulfillment and excitement, but no one wants to be left alone without any single cue and have no clue where to go. This is where things become frustrating. Gaming studios know that players are going to spend hours into the game, so they're introducing ways to facilitate their product. They're going to remove the little friction that even the most hardcore players are not willing to have. Here's a couple of examples. So in Age of Empires, you can rely your army with a keyboard shortcut called formation. In first-person shooters games, there is often the autofocus mode. Otherwise, it's become very hard to both move your character and focus on the person you want to shoot on. In platform games like Super Mario, there are some invisible walls that tell you that you can't go beyond a certain distance and that you should go the other way. In quest games, it might be cues that some peasants are going to give you. So in product management, this boils down to have a great UX, making sure that the main concepts in your product are easy to discover, that they are where people expect them to be, and make sure that the core paths and workflows of your product don't have core frictions. Okay, we get it, Enzo. You get people started, you onboard them, you make sure they can graduate through the most advanced use cases, and then you make sure you remove the hurdles. But how do you do that? Well, I'm glad you asked, because this is the next point. Tips number 4, iterate. When Blizzard worked on the development of Diablo 3, they wanted to solve one of the main problems they had in the previous game called potion spamming. Basically, the players were drinking so many potions in a row that the enemies had no chance to make any damage on them, and they would just win the game in a very easy manner. So they started thinking of a solution to this problem. The first solution was to make potions become less effective if you drink them in a quick successions. But that didn't work. If potion would only heal 25% of the life of the player, then the players would drink 4 of them in a row. Okay, so they tested something else. What about you automatically heal, but only if the enemies are unaware of your presence? Didn't work either. Players would stay away from the enemies and throw stuff at them and then take the potions. Enemy awareness wasn't working. Okay, option 3. If 3 seconds passed since an enemy last hit you, then you start to heal. Didn't work either. Players would run away from the fight, playing active and defensive until they would heal up all their life. The opposite of what the game designer wanted the players to experience. Okay, so option 4. They made the enemy randomly drop health globes. It worked. It removed the potion spamming, it was simple to understand, and make the players act very aggressively. After 3 iterations, this is a solution they decided to adopt. Okay, so for digital product, it means that great solution requires some iterations. The main learning from Lean Startup really is that you should build a smaller version of a solution that you can to your problem and put it in the hands of the customers so they actually tell you if this is solving the problem. As simple as that. Okay, so now that we have seen that gaming studios actually are very, very intentional about onboarding, progressing people, making sure there is no friction, and they do that through very iterative process, it doesn't tell us how people feel about these products, right? Well, good news, you get to choose it. Tips number 5, decide what people should feel. In 2004, 3 game designers sat down and wrote down an academic paper about how to craft great games. This framework became a reference because it would perfectly encompass the way to capture the dynamics of the games and the feelings. It's called MDA, which stands for Mechanics, Dynamics, and Aesthetics. Mechanics describes the actual workings of the game, the rules, what the buttons do, for instance, the number of lives you have. The dynamics is how the players react and plays in response to this mechanics. Because the users has tons of lives, they may rush into the game and into the enemies. And finally, the aesthetics is how the player feels when acting in that way. It is their emotional response. Rushing makes you feel powerful, reckless, unstoppable. Mechanics happen in the code, dynamics in the people's actions, and aesthetics in the player's feelings. When game designers change the code, it has a causal relationship and impact onto people's emotion. Changes cascade down and alter the emotion. If the number of life is very limited, now the players will be cautious before getting closer to the enemies. And this triggers new emotional reactions like being cautious, disempowered, maybe even fear. So in product management, really the same happens. There's a million ways you can make people feel about your product. You're not only delivering pixels. You may want to find love or build a truthful relationship, or you may want to go in your dream destination or move from one point to another because you have a plane to catch, whatsoever. For each of the problem you're solving, there's a trillion ways to make people feel. And the only one that matters is the one that you choose, which is your vision. Let's take Uber. Their black and crisp design makes them look trustworthy, safe, precise. Uber makes you feel like you're going to the airport for a trip. But look at Lyft now, it's a lot more playful and fun. It kind of makes you feel you're going to a party with your friends. These are intentional choices. Uber and Lyft visions are utterly different. To wrap up this section, I would simply say that building a great product simply isn't enough. You need to have vision of what you want people to feel when they're experiencing it. Bonus tips include delighters in your product. Video games are famous for having tons of delighters that they usually call Easter eggs. Easter eggs have existed for a very long time. They were ways for the developers to leave a little something for their friends, relatives, or for the future generation that would make them smile. When well executed, you remember these Easter eggs forever. In digital products, delighters can also play a big role. It is often said that a great product is a combination of stable stack features, functional features, but also delighters that are going to deliver beyond the current expectation of the customers and will also make them remember your product. If you are not familiar yet with the Kano model, I recommend checking it. Kano model comes with a couple of buckets for your features, including one called the excitement attributes or the delighters. These are the surprise elements that can really boost your product competitive edge. In your hotel room, that might be finding the complimentary Belgian chocolate. In the realm of video games, a universe of wonders, challenges, and creativity unfold before us. These virtual worlds, meticulously crafted, have captivated us for years. From the exhilarating rush of being a superhero to the quiet thrill of exploration, video games have woven themselves into our identities. Beyond the pixels and the controllers lies the treasures for product managers and product teams. The journey of game developers mirrors the quest of product managers to develop remarkable products. As games start easy and then challenge the most skilled people, our products can offer low-floor high ceilings that can accommodate all. Let's also not forget the power of removing complexity, as game designers masterfully do. By erasing the hurdles, we let people experience the journey throughout our creation. As we iterate, we unlock creative solutions, fine-tuning our products, like the creators of the most beloved games. Ultimately, just as mechanics, dynamics, and aesthetics wave emotions in the gamers, our products must evoke feelings that are aligned with our vision. From the sleek tortuousness of Uber to the playfulness of Lyft. Intentional decisions shape the overall user experience. And so, let's not only learn from games, but embrace their magic, the art of making people smile. Just as video games sprinkle in delighters, the small surprises that linger in memory, our digital products can infuse joy into each interaction. In a world where video games can sparkle joy, empowerment, or curiosity, we can draw inspiration to craft digital products that sparkle the same emotions. A symphony of innovation echoing the melody of gaming greatness. That's it for this video. I was personally very touched to be able to bring back some of my memories from my childhood and connect them to product management. If there's any great games or theories that I completely forgot, please let me know. I'd love to include it in my further content. And until next time, see ya!